So your whole site's not going to die if you're actually in the middle of drafting something. And of course, cheaper. One of the other things I added was out-of-the-box support for Visual Web Developer Express and SQL Server Express in the form of a user instance file, which is simply a hard file copy of a SQL Server Express database. If you've ever worked inside Visual Studio, you know there's an app data folder. You can put databases inside that and reference it using the data directly in the web config. And I basically added a little blank umbraco.mdf, changed the installation script to add a step that says, right, am I installing on a local SQL server or am I installing on this SQL Express instance, as it's called. So that's great. And works on shared hosting, tested by myself. I figured that if I was going to make these changes, I might as well live and die by my own sword. I have a £10 a month, I think it's $10 a month, so it's about £6 a month hosting account with GoDaddy. And it runs IIS 7, both classic and integrated mode, and it works. Well, kind of. It works with SQL Server. I discovered this morning it doesn't work with MySQL, but that's actually because the MySQL library at the moment doesn't work in Medium Trust, and that may be something I rewrite very soon. So, but if you're running SQL Server, it does run fine in Medium Trust because ASP.NET, of course, will have out-of-the-box support for a basic website with Medium Trust support and SQL Server connectivity. So Ian Horton identified something very interesting, which isn't necessarily a Medium Trust issue, it's actually a general site issue. As long as you've got network service running as your application pool, you'll be fine in shared hosting. Something we discovered is some hosts won't actually set network services your app pool owner, or they won't specify a set user. Now Umbraco does make some out of context calls, which means they're not actually executed in the context of a web request, they're executed locally, which means that they'll execute, if you've got a different user on your app pool, it'll run under network service on the call. So you have to make sure that your permissions are pretty much watertight with certain shared hosting companies. I tested with GoDaddy, they have it sensibly set up with using just one username for their app pool and out of context stuff. So now it actually becomes comparable in terms of costs. If you want a small startup site and you're looking around at the options, you go, oh, I want to set up a small blog. And you look at WordPress and go, yeah, great, that's a simple blogging platform. Or you look at Joomla, which has got free blog modules, or you look at .NET Nuke, which has got it included too. All of them are free, all of them are open source. But until recently, Umbraco didn't run in shared hosting, so to actually run it, you needed a dedicated server. That costs anywhere from £50 a month upwards. And if you're just running a personal site, that's not really a cost that's worth considering. You want something that's cheap, reliable, and works. Now, Umbraco does run on Medium Trust in very cheap shared hosting environments. So as a result, you have safer, more efficient code, which is also faster in terms of your application response times, and subsequent better coding practices as well, because you're not hacking around using script blocks that could potentially cause a mess of everything. Reduce development costs and overheads, because you can now use free Microsoft development tools. You can use Visual Web Developer Express, which costs nothing. You can use SQL Express, which costs nothing. You can use, if you really want, you could use Notepad or Notepad++ to write your app code. Goodness knows why you wouldn't want IntelliSense, but never mind. And as a result, lots of benefits for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're running on a full dedicated server, whether you're running on cheap hosting, you get to reap the benefits one way or the other. So, any questions?
At the moment, this is just a series of patches on top of
403.
Yeah.
Yes.
But something you said this morning. Yeah. It's actually going mainstream in 4.1.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's included in 4.1.
It will be. It will be included in 4.1. The patches I got when I got made part of the core. I submitted all my patches to the core branches for 4.1. So the specific patches are in place. The stuff that other people have written, especially the link to Umbraco stuff, being able to retrieve and manipulate the Umbraco system using link, that needs a specific type of permission, which again is, kneel down and beg to your web host.
But if I don't care about that,
if you don't care about link,
use link,
if you don't use link, then 4.1 support, then medium trust support will be officially in 4.1. There's an unofficial release that's on my website. You can find it via the Our forums and projects page. And yeah, it kind of went a bit nuts after I published it, because I published it on the 31st of January and I had 100 downloads in 2 days. Why were you developers not celebrating and getting drunk and hungover? Why? Why? Honestly. I can tell I need to educate a few people on that. So yeah, I think it's had something like 400 downloads in 5 weeks. And a lot of people, yeah, have been very happy and are now running successfully sites in Medium Trust, which is great.
That would be an interesting thing to stick on the Our page.
Yes.
Is whilst it still patches on top of
Yes.
the core, it would be good to show reference sites, because I really want to use this.
Of course.
But I don't want to go through the pain of shifting one of my paying customers onto something that at the moment maybe 1 or 2 people have used. But if I can see maybe 50 people have got it running,
and got
then
it
I might
stable.
think, yeah, this is a patch that's pretty, as long as I test it properly myself, then I'm going to be happy to do it.
What I'll do then is I'll set up on my website is still undergoing massive development. I've been so busy I haven't actually even got my own personal site up and running. So when I do get it up and running, which I'm hoping is going to be by the end of tomorrow, but that is only touch wood, that's not guaranteed. Then I'll stick a registration form on there, which is actually if people want to download, they simply fill out their name and their email address, then they can still download it. It'll still be free and accessible, but then I can get some more quantitative numbers, and then contact people and say, right, how have you used it? Have you found it good? And see how that goes. So.
And this obviously doesn't affect those Umbraco installations in dedicated servers at all, is it?
It doesn't. It doesn't affect Umbraco dedicated installations as such. It's generally a good practice to run if you're running a dedicated server and you've got. Thank you. Hang on, Bob. Please excuse me. Let's make that easy.
You shouldn't have said anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell her to watch the podcast.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, I will. Don't you worry. Yeah. If you're running your sites on a dedicated server, if you're running more than one site on a dedicated server, having Medium Trust in place is never going to be a bad thing anyway. Because if you want to be able to let other people write code on that and use macros and stuff, as I said, using Medium Trust enforces good coding practices. It forces you to think about how you're writing your code, rather than just writing unnecessary hacks. I mean, there's one hack I discovered in blog for Umbraco, where the tags data type will be fixed in 4.1 if anyone's had any problems with that, by the way. That I actually fixed on the train here this morning. Basically, with the blog for Umbraco package, when you first install it, there's a create blog post dashboard on the homepage, and you can go down to the bottom and create the tags. Now, under the hood, when you actually hit publish, what happens is that the tags data type used to rely on having a query string passed into it, which was the ID of the document that you're editing. Now, if you're creating a new one, obviously it doesn't have an ID until it's been created. So there was a horrible hack in there, which we unfortunately must attribute to our benevolent dictator, who cannot be with us today.
Dear leader.
Dear leader, yes, our dear leader, who wrote a hack that actually modified the private query string array in the request object, which is the most memory unsafe hack I have ever seen. Please do not do it. Please. I will hunt you down if you do after this presentation. So things like that don't work in Medium Trust. Things like that have been rewritten to accommodate for it. And as I say, it enforces better coding practices rather than writing ugly hacks like that one. So it's generally a better idea. So plus it's got a smaller overhead because it has to load less security permissions as well, which means that you've got less of an IIS overhead per site or per application pool. So you can effectively run more sites on what would be the same physical hardware. Any further questions? No? Thank you very much.